That is strictly the role of fiscal policy. The central bank of any country is the junior partner when it comes to defining the pathway to macroeconomic policy. So when you then begin to talk about what the central bank is doing to attract investors, that is not the role of the central bank. That is the role of fiscal policy. Central fiscal policy is supposed to define the parameters around which investors will look at the investment climate and find it attractive and come into the country. It is within those parameters that the central bank of the country works with the mandate that was given to it by Parliament. In this case, the attainment of price stability. And I give an example. In a country where the price stability goal is completely lost, and we keep looking at countries like Zimbabwe, for instance. If the central bank loses the mandate of price stability, you're outrightly going to lose your relevance. You lose your relevance. You don't have a currency. The currency of the country will completely become nothing. Look at Germany in World War II, when the Deutschmark lost its value. You have thousands, billions of Deutschmark, and you could only buy perhaps a bottle of water. Then that is what inflation can do to a currency. And then once you destroy the credibility of the central bank and you load it with responsibilities that it does not have the instruments to execute. Central banks have very little instruments. It is not like a government. The instruments available to a policeman, for instance, the policeman has a gun. He has the entire retinue of laws of the country behind him. So a policeman can charge you for drinking water in the wrong place. But the central bank, the instruments available to the central bank are so limited, and it can do very little with those instruments. Only within the structure of managing liquidity and defining the direction of the country's currency can a central bank function. So perhaps this question could better be put to the fiscal authorities, and they should. But I think that we have seen the economic blueprint which the government has released, and some of the issues we are raising are addressed comprehensively within the structure of that blueprint.
Okay, looking at the global economy, we've looked at issues of the United States. Yesterday, the central bank governor spoke about the protectionism, will I say, the kind of the way what they are taking now, the posture that the U.S. is taking now, and then you're also watching, other, major players in the global economy. Now, what is the CBN, looking at, going forward to ensure that our own, rates, I know we don't receive any form of shock?
And that is where the task of ensuring monetary and price stability as part of the mandate of the central bank comes in. When the central bank acts within its mandate and says, look, we are trying to ensure the stability of the value of the currency by managing demand. Now, unfortunately, for the tools that are available to the central bank, can only manage the demand side. But the problem we have currently in the country is not just a demand side stimulated issue. There's a problem with supply side. There's a problem with demand side. Now, fiscal policy has responsibility for stimulating the supply side. Because one, there's a problem with the breakdown in aggregate demand because there's a problem with aggregate income, take home of the people. So if you stimulate the income levels first, then people can produce. If companies can produce and they're able to sell both domestically and then export, you are improving the supply side. When they bring back the proceeds from the exports, you are increasing FX supply. So the management of external reserves becomes quite easy. But if you're simply going to depend on oil, for which you do not have control over the price and the volume, which you serve, then you know that the country is really in a fix. And when there's a crisis as it is now, you see, over the last 1 month or a couple of weeks now, you've seen that prices of oil have started trending downwards again.
Trending downwards.
It's trending down because of the developments in shale oil in the United States. Whereas OPEC has reached an agreement with Russia, which saw prices inching upwards, the shale oil producers, with massive support from the United States, have stepped up production of shale oil and have introduced this in the market, and is diluting the prices, and you see oil price developments shrinking. Now that's a major issue. Now unfortunately, within the structure of these key issues, the central bank does not have a role to play because it does not have the instruments to influence. But if a fiscal policy can come in forcefully and improve the investment climate, because some of the issues why we are not having the capital coming in from outside, both FDI and portfolio investment in the quantity we expected it to have come, is that there are still concerns, and especially those concerns from the perspective of the investors, the concerns are around the clarity of the exchange rate market. Now, to that extent, the central bank has begun to make a statement by beginning to provide the clarity around the framework which the market is operating. And once that clarity is there, and the international community sees that, look, genuinely we have seen the demand is being met, we have to recalibrate what our options are, what our expectations are, then you see that portfolio investment begins to come in, confidence begins to come in. But as long as that confidence is no longer there, it becomes an issue entirely to the framework of macroeconomic management. So to that extent, the central bank has begun to provide that clarity that the market has all along been looking out for.
Okay, yesterday also the issue about liquidity for banks, looking at the fact that, monies have been mopped up, and the fact that banks in Nigeria have these, have faced a couple of shocks, The central bank governor said you need the deposit money banks need to work, closely with the central bank because of the resilience. Now, what will we be looking at in terms of the partnership, to try and strengthen the commercial banks? Because if these people do not have, the kind of funds that they need, definitely they can't also meet some of the requirements in the economy.
Yeah, we need to understand the narrative around the issue of the liquidity of the banking system. There is liquidity in the banking system, but the banks have a problem. They have had very heavy exposure to the oil subsector of the economy. They've given out so much loans. And some of these loans were dollar-denominated loans for activities that were naira earning. So you give a loan to a company that does not have the capacity to earn dollar. It is only earning naira. But you give a dollar-denominated loan to that company, and that company is able to pay you in dollars. So that's the first problem. So when there was a shock, like the exchange rate shock and the oil shock, the first people to be hit were the banks. Now, secondly, the banks have extended some loans to the public sector. And some of those loans, again, some of them to companies that are providing utilities or providing services to government, or that have done some contracts to government. Now, to the extent that government has not yet paid those people who do those services, and those people have not been able to service the loans, it has affected the balance sheet of the banks because it has led to